What up, gamers? We are back with some more modern action. This time around, we've got sort of a classic matchup, if you will. It's Is It Twin versus Mono Green Tron. I say a sort of a classic matchup because these are decks that existed back in the old school version of Modern back in the day. Now, these decks look very different from that era of Modern. Specifically, the Mono Green Tron is very heavily a Eldrazi focused list, Devourer of Destinies, things like that. But it also has powerful things like Ugin, the new Ugin, not the old 8-drop Ugin, which back in the day wasn't even a thing. It was used to rely purely on Karn liberated there, and so yeah, that, you know, we can sit here and talk the history of Modern and Magic all day long, but let's get into talk a little bit more about this match. Of course, Is It Twin is a focus on the twin combo, so within the Is It shell, but it also is an Is It Wizard list. So it's kind of that hybrid version, and you kind of mesh two decks together. I mean, we've talked about it before, how Twin is not really a meta contender, but it is really fun deck to play. Like, if you like the Is It shell and you want to be able to rock it out with some fun Is It stuff, this is one of the decks to be able to play with, and it's easy to upgrade into a pure Is It Wizard shell from it. Like, you know, the Splinter Twin package is relatively cheap. You know, it did rise up in price right after the release, but as it has kind of, you know, shown not to be a meta contender in the 2025 era of Modern, people have kind of fallen back of it. Now, the Cavern of Souls could be a little bit of a problem, because you have to think is the Is It Twin lists are very counter spell focused. Not only do we get access to counter spell, but we also get access to Snapcaster Mage, so you do get almost double duty, double the number of counter spells available to the list there. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that might impact the match here. But we see the way things are set up here with the Cavern of Souls and the Eldrazi Temple and the map, you would assume to only see map in the Tron list, right? Urza's Mine, Urza's Tower, Urza's Power Plant. But seeing the caverns and the temples, right, you have to have some extra variation numbers on your Eldrazi lands in here because of how Eldrazi focused Tron has become. Now, I do want to make my own Tron list, or update my Tron list, because I do have the old school version of Tron. I say old school again, like back when you were cycling the chromatic spheres and stars to be able to generate a mana and draw a card, and that fun, I say fun, but it was much more of the cantrippy, let's kind of sit here and do nothing for a couple turns until we get Tron assembled, and then we just start dumping out our big scary stuff. The way that Tron is set up now, or at least the Eldrazi lists like this are set up, it is much more proactive. We are able to use Kozilek's command to help us tutor, well, not necessarily tutor, but scry, draw cards, generate card advantage through being able to assemble a bunch of little spawns, being able to kill creatures, getting rid of things in the graveyard. So very versatile card. Also, Sowing Microspawn is a great card, right? Being able to help tutor up lands. So I like that card a lot. We, going for the Tron lands here. We got, of course, the map to pop. Now we're going to be tutoring up another one. So the mana count has increased significantly. Now, this is a cast trigger with it. So if you're thinking about, if you counter it, what's going to happen? The cast trigger will still go off. So, but we do have a bolt to respond with. Shoot that down, clear the path a little bit. And lightning bolts aren't as effective, when we're thinking about against a Eldrazi list. A lot of the stuff are big, scary monstrosities, 5-7 power or more. Like, it gets a little bit out of hand. So lightning bolt, not very effective. That is a pretty effective card, though. Harbinger of the Seas will help kind of put a stop. I mean, at this point, the ramp count has increased, though, so it does help at least delay the acceleration, the amount of mana that is produced off of these lands. Now it's all islands. Even the cavern is now no longer useful. And look at that. So we have mine, power plant, and tower, but they all tap for 1 blue at this point. He said tap these Urza Islands for a talisman. I like that. Kind of set up here. We're kind of building up and preparing for the next stages of things. Attempt to play Karn, the Great Creator. Now, do we have a force of negation here? Looks like nope. We're fine with letting that Karn resolve. So that means we do get to go into the toolbox mode of the deck. We get to tutor up from our sideboard here, and it is an artifact-focused sideboard, so we get to pull a lot of stuff. There might be 1 or 2 non-artifacts in the list, sometimes up to 3, but for the most part, you're running like a 10 to 12 card artifact-heavy sideboard. Now, with the main board, Harbinger of the Seas, we do run a few more basic mountains in the list for this very situation, because Splinter Twin does cost double red in order to cast. But Snapcasts are going to come and will allow us to do some Lightning Bolt to clean up Karn here. Hoping to kind of reduce the amount of scary threats that might be out as we kind of use the wizards to try to take over here. Again, the mana count is high. All right, we are up to essentially 6 mana. So that 7 is that scary number we have to think about. That's like our, devastators and things like that. They get to start exiling stuff. But Walking Ballista is going to attempt to get cast, which will be hit with the Flare of a Nile, sacrificing a Snapcaster here. Yeah, so hand is going to be very heavily reliant on that Karn here. So it looks like, are we going to get close to the Hellbent mode? Looks like, yeah, we're just going to keep ramping up. And that's a fine way to set things up, knowing that the, Walking Ballista did not resolve, so we have to kind of rely on the next stages here. All right, bring the beats. Beaten down with the Harbinger of the Seas. That's the other difference between players that are running like Blood Moons and stuff like that. Every now and again, you'll see some Magus of the Moon players running in the Izzet Wizard list because, just like Harbinger of the Seas, Magus of the Moon is a wizard, so it does help us out with that kind of double duty action. All right. Yeah, so you see the mana kind of set up here. Looks like we are going to be going for the Karn again, or attempting for the Karn here. And there is a counterspell in response, so that will at least put a stop to that. And then we're left with 1 card in hand. It is a Summoning Mycospawn, but I guess we tapped a little bit off there, so we could have done that. But I guess us waiting until next turn allows us to kick it. So that means we can destroy one of our opponent's lands, so that does add a little bit of extraness there. But hope you guys are enjoying our content here. Of course, we do have our gameplay stuff every Monday and Thursday, which is our in-paper person adventures, and then MTGO content on the weekends for you. Then we're putting together and editing up some travel content from MagicCon for you guys to be able to enjoy. So I hope you guys are ready for all that stuff. We're going to be spending way too much money on getting cards signed and playing in events and just kind of hanging out and having fun at MagicCon. Or I guess at this point in time, we are back from MagicCon. So, yeah. So the vlog content will be coming out soon for that. Probably next week would be my assumption, depending on how long it takes me to edit through everything with all the travel going on. All right, so there is the Sowing Mycospawn kicked. Now, if there's no consigned main board, which there is not, well, that's going to be able to resolve. So the question is, do you just blow up the mountain here? Nah, so it's we know that the plan is to get rid of the Harbinger, so getting rid of one of the dual lands makes a lot of sense. All right, looks like we're going for a basic forest here. We already have all the Tron stuff assembled. We're this just helps us not to take damage off the talismans, but And the Myco Spawn's nice out here, at least kind of puts a wall up to prevent the Harbinger from being able to swing in. Ooh, Flame of Anor. So 5 damage, draw 2 cards because we do have a wizard available to us there. Flame of Anor is such a good card. It is a lot of players that are running the Jeskai list and testing out Jeskai lists have been starting to include that in their list. I think it is pretty worth it. But here is a Murktide. So, the grindiness that the deck has available to us, we get to kind of deploy some scary threats like this. And this is, pretty strong. It does run into that difficulties of we committed a lot of resources to this Murktide with a Ugin popping out, with a Devourer of Destiny popping out. It does make it a little bit more challenging. All right, another island drawn here for our Tron player. The player next to us is like, is that a Murktide region? That's gross. Yeah, is it Twin? Has a little bit of sprinkling of everything. There's only 2 Murktides in the list, but again, it's like I have found that you cannot go all in on the Twin plan without having these sort of backup plans, because it works out so much better when players are using their resources to deal with things like the Harbinger of the Seas, the Murktide, and then you're like, okay, you've spent a lot of your resources. Now I'm just going to combo with the Twin, right? We've seen that before, but now we're going to be seeing Game 2 sideboard action coming in here. So this is where, again, if you're running blue, you're running not Stern Scolding, Consigned to Memories, which my consigned count was low for the Twin list at the time of this recording. It has increased now. I want to say we're up to 3. We should be up to 4, but when I run 5 different blue decks, it becomes very difficult to because I like having my decks be standalone decks. I know a lot of people are like, just swap the sleeves, put the cards between them. Yes, that is a great idea. But when we're making content and wanting people to borrow decks and be able to do things like that, having these standalone decks does add an element that is, great in that regard of us being able to, show off some of the fun decks that are in Modern. All right, a turn 1 Devour means that we get a look at our top 4 cards, get ourselves set up here. So pick one, goes back on the top. The others get exiled here. So that's the debate of, do we want a threat or not? Do we want a specific land? Like, how do you want to set yourself up with this? And Devourer reveal is also like, okay, there's that impending doom of a Devourer exile effect that will get utilized. Or is this going to immediately get attached to a land and start generating 2 mana? We will see. Yep, there it is. Ugin's Labyrinth. And a Chalice for 1. So that is a bit of a challenge. We saw quite a bit of the cantrippy stuff, Preordains, Lightning Bolt, stuff like that are available. There's a Lightning Bolt getting into the graveyard here. So those basically are now dead draws with Chalice on 1. We can get rid of it, of course. We need Flame of Anor to be able to do that. So there is Artifact Hate in the list. All right, up to 3 mana. Again, that 7 mana is the scary number. So it's like, as the Tron count increases, that likelihood of being able to kind of start dropping those bombs goes up. Or our Twin player is just sort of sitting here just trying to set themselves up for stuff. And a lot of times you are trying to, set up using Preordains, the cantrippy effects, things like that. Oh, okay, so just kind of land go is happening now between these players. All right, expressive iteration. Looking for a land drop. And response with a Kozilek's command. So this will be, you know, drawing. We're going to scry and draw, and we're going to generate some creatures off this. Ooh, that's pretty good. I don't know if we need that Kozilek. We can put that on the bottom. I mean, we definitely want another Kozilek's command. Oh, we get rid of a Tashana's Tidebinder. So we missed a land, maybe? Uh-oh. Or do we have a land in hand? Okay, we got a land in hand. All right, we cast a Preordain, which will be, of course, countered by the Chalice, but this is filling up the graveyard. We saw the Murktide in Game 1, so sometimes it is actually worth it to throw spells into a Chalice in the preparation to build a Murktide up later. And that's kind of, you know, it is a very obvious line. Once you see your opponent starting to do that, you can kind of go, okay, we saw a Murktide in Game 1. We see them dumping stuff, so it looks like they're setting up for a very early Murktide. So that might make you prioritize your Kozilek's command into exiling things from your graveyard. And just say, hey, let's try to keep that at bay and keep that in check for a little bit. Yeah, so what are we at? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana right now. So again, 7 mana, very scary, but we didn't get another land drop, it looked like there. Ooh, no. Okay, both players missing land drops here. All right, Kozilek's command going to get used. I mean, there are times when it's good to counter the Kozilek's command, but it's such a setup card that unless they're exiling stuff from my side of the battlefield, I'd rather save counter spells for whatever big thing they bring out next. All right, so what do we have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana now? So that means Kozilek or Ugin. What are we going for? Okay, it is. It's time. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Whenever you cast this spell, draw 4 cards. It's 12/12, and whenever it is put into the graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles it into their library. So anti-mill effects, but also just allowing us to draw 4 cards. So I like this Tron list because it does run some of these big top-end Eldrazi's in here as well. It's just one of those like, hey, I'm just going to throw more bombs at you. One of these is going to stick and it's going to kill you. Until then, you know, deal with these annoying things on the ground like Chalice of the Void and stuff like that. So it is a lot of just kind of sit back. It might have a harder time against some aggro lists. I don't know if this one is running like All Is Dust and stuff like that. I am a big fan of All Is Dust, but, you know, again, 7 mana is that key mana count. All right. We're going to throw another lightning bolt that does nothing except fill up our graveyard. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in the graveyard right now. So that is kind of a nice little like, hey, heads up, this is a potential. Ooh, Harbinger of the Seas. And no land drop again. That is tough. Okay, but at least this might keep the Tron player in check for a turn or two, because now they've only got 4 mana essentially here. All right, Talisman. All right, generate a green here. Or generate a black. Yeah, generating a black, paying 2 life, and Phyrex, or going to dismember. I wanted to say Phyrexian. I have the Phyrexian text of Dismember that I just pulled to put in and try to get signed this weekend. So, or this, yeah, based on when this is being filmed, based on when it's released, it's all mixed and matched here. All right, here's the Murktide coming out now. So big Murky. Ooh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana is available. So there is a Ugin, there is a Devourer of Destiny here. Okay, so we're going to Devour Destiny under another Ugin's Labyrinth. All right, 7 colorless. Ugin, Eye of the Storms. All right, we got a counter spell for it, but again, that's where Consign comes in, where you can counter the trigger. Now, you would have to replicate it. With Chalice, it would counter the spell, but you pay the replication cost, and the replicate should be able to counter the triggered ability, even if the spell initially is countered. Right? It's basically like copying it, like you're storming. All right, passing the turn. So we're trying, also, like, we have the mana now. We just need Deceiver and Splinter Twin to kind of wrap up the game, because the Murktide got answered. The Chalice does pose a problem. Because I cannot cast this Expedition map. This is now a useless card. Alright, we do not have Tron assembled, but we still have plenty of mana. Especially if we're casting an Eldrazi. 10 mana available if we cast an Eldrazi. 9 mana available towards anything else. Ooh, return this to our hand. That's interesting. So basically, like, we're telegraphing our play here. Another Kozilek's Command coming out. So my assumption is we're going to do another Scry draw, and then we're going to do some more spawns. Like, there are stuff in the graveyard, but what, 3 cards in the graveyard? So now the graveyard fight is less relevant. All right, yep, 5 spawns coming out. Scry 5. Ooh, a Karn, that's nice. Another Chalice. Hey, stop kicking our camera. The downside to having the camera set up on an extra table, sometimes players will bump into it, or, you know, at least we are no longer seeing the camera shakes of players shuffling and placing cards on the table. That fixing that has made a huge difference to the watchability of the videos. At least I feel that way. Hopefully you guys as audience members feel that way too. All right, so we got a lot of big threats prepared. Now we just got to start deploying them. Now, it's like I'm wondering about the Devourer, if it's like, are we waiting to exile something, or are we just sort of in that, like, okay, let's see what we can do here. Oh, generate a green mana here. So now we're getting ourselves set up. It looks like probably a Sowing Microspawn at this point in time. Yeah, Sowing Microspawn, and it will be kicked. So 6 mana total, and we'll pop the Thundering Falls to do it. All right, are we going to go find more of our Tron pieces at this point? I mean, we don't have a lot of the pieces at the moment. We do have the tower, but at this point, we already have our Ugin's Labyrinth, our, you know, Eldrazi Temple. Like, we could have gotten a Cavern of Souls, but I think, you know, just being like, all right, let's get a couple of Tron pieces. Oh, the chalice for 2 here. That's the basically saying I'm going to put a stop to your counter spells. And we'll do a Flare of Denial. Of course, you see only 2 mana tap, but we did float 1 off the Thundering Falls to count for that top, for the all 3 of that mana. Yeah, kind of a just sort of reactionary round here for our twin player, where the Mono Green player is really just sort of running away with the game here with the chalice out. They've got plenty of mana now, so all the stuff that was used to try to keep things in check, not effective. But Devourer of Destiny going to be cast, exiling nothing. Another talisman. Let's just kind of keep generating mana. And bring the beats. Here's 3. Now, 3 mana is still good. We could try to cast a, Deceiver or something like that to keep things in check. We would just need 4 mana to cast Splinter Twin. But not getting another land drop. Dang. This is rough. Riding the struggle bus here, trying to generate enough mana. Or trying to generate any threats. I guess I'm wondering how many 1-drops are stuck in hand, though. Another Sowing Mycospawn. Kicked, so that means 1 less land down. And yeah, we'll scoop it up there. Go to game number 3. Oof. Tied up, 1-1. Yeah, look at all these 1-drops. Okay, so there was a consign. So, again, we could replicate there, but all of those other 1-drops made it really tough. Okay, so game number 3 here. All tied up. We got to see... We didn't really see any twin action. It's been a lot of the Is It Wizards or Murktide.
That looks like maybe. Oh, geez, that's a strong maybe.
All right, so we've got 2 mana, a talisman, and oh yeah, we got a Devour. Yeah, that seems pretty good. And a map available. 18 with a Tameo. Okay. Again, more of the wizard package there.
My opponent has that on turn 1, so let's see how this goes. I will do my Devourer trigger. Yes.
All right, Devourer trigger. Of course, we get to look at those top 4 again. Okay. Okay. Do we need a threat or do we need a land here? That's basically what it's asking us.
Those are what I want.
Yeah, we just started game 3, sorry.
It's okay. I like entertaining. I can go ahead and exile.
All right. So we're going to go with... Yeah, so it looks like we'll keep a land on top. Devour, Ugin, and a Labyrinth were exiled off of that. So that is also very telling. What cards are being exiled lets us know a little bit more. But there we see... Boom. What a turn. All right, so we're setting ourselves up for a big rampy setup turn here. Generate a clue. And then we shall... Yeah, pass after that. Nothing else to go about it. Just this is also giving indication of potential counterspell. So like this is a pretty good way of setting up the turn. All right, Urza Tower. And there's a power plant in hand, so that means that map's going to get popped and help us find our full-on Tron. But Clue's going to get popped. Let us draw some cards, try to get some card advantage there. We don't really need to care about hoarding clues in this list compared to like the Jeskai Narset list or any of the affinity type lists that exist.
At the end of your turn, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooh.
Command X equals 2.
What mode would you like to attempt?
Get rid of Tameo and make 2 guys.
All right, so we're going to attempt to get rid of Tameo and make 2 guys. So that will be hit with the counterspell. So we talked about it before as like, I tend to let Kozilek's command go by unless it directly is affecting my side of the battlefield. Oh, there's an Ulamog. Ulamog resolving is just like game ending. Most of the lists don't run it anymore. It's an old school style, but like I love the idea of having like just a a one of in the list. All right, making another clue. Clue count continues to grow.
How many cards do you have left in hand?
3 cards in hand. The debate about how much do we want to push here. So what's the debate here? The debate here is if we pop the clues and get the Tameo, what do we get? Like, ooh, okay. So mine, power plant, and tower, and there's an Ugin attempted to be cast here. Ooh, Tidebinder. So that's a good response. Counter target activated or trigger ability if an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is counted this way, it loses all abilities. So it is a 7 loyalty, nothing.
Yeah, it still has 7 loyalty. Okay, cool. Yeah,
All right, so now it's the debate of do you push for damage or do you push to deal with Ugin?
It's pretty versatile. It's very good at standard. It is still in standard. It's so funny.
Oh, there's a twin in hand, but no other stuff. So we're going at face here, which I don't know. I see the idea to push for damage, but also like the Ugin is an impending doom. Yes, right now Tidebinder is currently safe, but with the Ugin's Labyrinth having the Devourer there, that could just be like, hey, return the Devourer, eat the Tidebinder. Oh, right, Ulamog. We're going to target these two. That's a tricky spot to be in, because now that will turn on Ugin. And if this resolves, it is indestructible, and it makes your opponent exile the top 20 cards of their library on an attack trigger. So we'll counter that, make sure that does not resolve, but we will end up losing both of those. And Ugin is now back. So plussing Ugin here, drawing a card, gaining 3 life. So that Tidebinder push didn't actually do anything now that Ugin is free. All right, popping a clue, drawing a card here. We're hoping for a Deceiver Exarch, Splinter Twin win at this point in time. We're trying to dig for a Deceiver. We have Splinter Twin in hand. But the question is, how long can we survive until we draw into it? There's no Chalice out right now, so that does help. Passing turn is a tough spot. Didn't get a land drop there. Now we're Ugin in it, he says. Straight up Ugin. And oh, is there a Sowing Mycospawn? That's kind of what it looked like. All right, plussing 3 more life, drawing another card. Yeah, the card advantage. That's the thing. It's like I keep wanting to pick up Ugins because it's such a cool card. Like once it resolves, you just like get so much advantage. Like every time you're casting something that is a colorless spell, you're exiling something else. Like it definitely is one of those runaway planeswalkers. Oh, yeah, we're having the discussion about old school hardened scales. When the deck was first being created, players were playing Winding Constrictors and stuff. Oh, Karn the Great Creator here. So Karn is going to get met with a Snapcaster into a counterspell here. We can't let the Karn stay around because that, one would mess with the clue card that we're trying to draw from, but also allow for the toolbox tutoring here. All right, Talisman of Unity coming out, which then colorless spell means we exile a colored permanent. And here's a Mycospawn. Do we kick it? No, we're not kicking it, it looks like. So the choice not to kick it here is to pop the map as well, it looks like. I mean, popping a land here is probably fine too, because that's another way to just help get more advantage. But
Dude, I'm going to pass the turn.
all right. So again, the out at this point is getting a deceiver. That's one of the nice things of running this compared to like the other versions of is you do have a oops I win button almost, where you can just sort of like, okay, now I can just sort of combo out of these almost unwinnable situations if I have the right pieces. All right, Tamio. Yeah, I was like, Tamio's not going to live very long, but again, we're digging for tools. So Flame of Anor.
We're going to draw 2 cards. And
There's no artifacts worth killing here. I mean, you could kill a talisman. Like, if we try to kill the map just gets popped and search. I guess you deal 5 damage to the creature because you cannot deal damage to planeswalkers with Flame of Anor. This will allow Tamio to flip, but we expect Tamio not to stick around, sadly. As great as it would be to immediately minus and get some stuff. Oh, we did get a land there. Okay.
untap. Upkeep, draw. -11. Yes.
Yeah, but guess what? It doesn't matter. We already got to the -11. We had to deal with the planeswalker that turn. Who was tracking that? Who was paying attention to that? No lightning bolts to help us keep that in check. So now we get to do the fun resolving of Ugin. We get to see exactly what this player is going to be tutoring up for. So they get to find any cards that they want that are colorless cards in their library. And then they get to cast those for the price of for free. So, of course, we get another Ugin, so we can recast it and just kind of start this train all over again. And an Ulamog here. Okay, so there's 2 in the list. World Breaker's nice. Kozilek. Yeah, so we get to see all the big, scary Eldrazi that this player is running here.
And 1 more Devourer.
And 1 more Devourer for good measure.
I'll shuffle my library.
So there is no surviving this, by the way, in case you're tracking. I mean, with the Ulamog there, blowing up 2 of the lands.
I'll cast Ugin, Eye of the Storm.
All right, Ugin gets rid of Tamio.
I will
Kozilek will draw 4 cards.
cast World Breaker.
World Breaker, and yeah, so blow that land up.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to hit the dual colored lands.
Ulamog will get rid of 2 more of those.
Ulamog.
Hey, active player turn 0. Yeah, get rid of those 2. So yeah, our Deceiver Splinter Twin now cannot even get us out of this.
Cast another Devourer. Cast another Devourer.
Devour.
Cast Kozilek Butcher.
Kozilek, let's draw 4 cards. Now, these 4 cards should be separate from these other cards, right? Just to help track for things, like put those with the rest of your hand, because, you know, the cards that were in the hand, this pile initially were the cards that could be cast for free, while the other stuff that's face down there should not. It doesn't really matter too much. But if you ever get to this point where you're resolving stuff like this, it does make it a little bit tough. But now, we already know the player did have to reveal it all, so we know all the cards that they were able to reveal, right? They said, hey, I revealed all of these things, so we know, you know, there's Kozilek's command essentially left. But yeah, hey, and that's it. had to wrap it up with the Ugin Ultimate. Very exciting to see. I mean, how often do you get to see an Ugin Ultimate on camera, right? Not that often there, so we had to showcase that for everyone to see. But hope you guys enjoyed that one, seeing a little bit of Tron versus Splinter Twin action. Even if we didn't get to see any Twin go off this game. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next game.